I've been wanting to do this video for, I don't know, about a week, I guess. I'm watching, I watch Lex Friedman, or actually I listen to Lex Friedman a lot while I'm driving. And since I'm parked, I'm actually watching the Lex Friedman interview with Ben Shapiro. And they're talking about Ukraine. And it reminded me that I keep thinking about this video, and every time I think about it, I'm doing something where I can't shoot the video. And since I'm not working on anything right now, I'm going to do it. There's a big problem that doesn't appear to be talked about much here in the United States. But when you watch news outside of America, it's not excessively covered, but it's not hard to find coverage about the situation. And it's the connection with Ukraine and Taiwan. It's not that the two themselves are tied together, but it's the fact that a lot of things went into motion. And when you actually sit back and you look at the timeline of things that happened, it really does start to make you question what really was going on. But it also, without diving into the weeds of a possible conspiracy theory, it's still the fact that there's a major situation that ties Ukraine and Taiwan very closely together. Right now, the fate, people don't realize how much is riding on Biden's hands. And I think that's why it's not been in the news so much here in America, because no one's really sure what Biden is going to do. And Ben Shapiro just brought up the only out that Putin has where this can end the conflict with both Ukraine's president and Putin walking away with clean hands. And it's really scary because of the Taiwan situation. First, you need to look at what happened. I'm going to go into the weeds a little bit here. It's more speculative. It's not even really conspiracy theory because it's all right there. It's laid out, but it's speculative of what happened in the back room. February of 2022, China and Russia make a 30-year energy agreement. A new pipeline going in and everything. Which means the talks had to start in February, so that's what? January, February? You figure probably December or November of 2019, the talks really started to take off. It's around the same time that China really started instigating Taiwan. You can't miss that connection. I mean, is Russia involved? I'm not going to say that Russia is involved, but at its face value, it doesn't look good. But February 4th, I'm doing this off the top of my head. February 4th, 2022, they signed a 30-year agreement. Within 3 weeks, Russia goes and invades Ukraine. Now, a lot of people like to blame Biden for what's happening. You can't blame Biden. I'm not a friend of Biden. I did not vote for Biden. I would have preferred Trump over Biden, actually, even though I would have preferred somebody over Trump, but I would have preferred Trump over Biden. But this is not Biden's fault. This is Putin's fault. Putin invaded Ukraine, not Biden. Now, we can all argue about, the fact that it was the Obama-Biden administration that let Putin get away with it in the first place, the first time they invaded a sovereign country. And so why wouldn't Putin think, well, we get away with it a second time invading a sovereign country? But that's besides the point. Putin did it, not Biden. So I'm not going to beat on Biden for what Putin did. Anyone who's going to beat on Biden for what Putin did is either a communist, a Putin sympathizer, or just completely politically deranged. I'm just going to put it out there. Because I'm no fan of Biden at all, but I'm not going to blame Biden for what Putin did. When Putin invaded Ukraine, what did Biden do? Biden called up Zelensky, that's his name, called up Zelensky and said, hey, we'll send you planes. Zelensky's like, no, we're fighting for our country. This is our country. We're a free country. We're a sovereign country. Now, no matter what you think about the country's politics, the fact of the matter is, the people of Ukraine are their own free and sovereign people. You need to respect that. And as an American, that's why I stand with Ukraine. It's not that I'm standing with the Ukrainian government. I don't know much about the Ukrainian government, but that's besides the point. It has nothing to do with their government. It's the fact that they are a free and sovereign country from Russia. And the people do not want to go back to Russia. That's why all the citizens are standing with their government to fend off Russia. So you have to respect that, especially as an American. If you can't respect that as an American, then, I'm not going to go there. While this is all going on, China's sitting there wringing their hands. Taiwan, we're going to get Taiwan. We're going to get Taiwan. And then when that all happened, Russia's like, wait, what did China's like, wait, what did Zelensky just say? And then the whole world gets behind Zelensky. And then China said, oh, shit. So they backed off. And they really have. They're still saber rattling, but they've backed off a lot because they're watching what's going on and they don't know what to do. Because they were planning on invading Taiwan. It's obvious. It was all there. The writing was on the wall. The issue that's coming in now is the problem that what Biden does, because everybody's looking to Biden, ironically, what Biden does is going to dictate what China's next move is. And this is very critical because if you don't know, your phone, this truck, your car, your TV, your smart refrigerator, your computers, pretty much anything that has any kind of computer in it, the chip almost guaranteed came from Taiwan. Think about that. The chips came from Taiwan. Taiwan is the number one microchip manufacturer in the world. They produce over 90%. I got a truck backing up in front of me. That's why you see the light doing that. They produce over 90% of all the microchips in the world, including the microchips that are in things like our top secret stealth bomber, and our F-35s, and all our naval ships, our nuclear arsenal. Any new computer that's been put up in the Pentagon, most likely has a microchip from Taiwan in it. This is really important, because if China gets a hold of Taiwan, it's a disaster, because you know what's going to happen? There's no choice in the matter. As a matter of defense for the whole world, the world has to get together. While China is invading Taiwan, if it looks like China is going to win Taiwan, the whole world has to get together, and we have to go bomb Taiwan. Because we cannot let China get a hold of the warehouses where all these microchips are being processed. Talk about a political disaster. It's a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare. And that's the irony to what's going on in Ukraine right now, because while the whole world is watching Ukraine, China's watching what we do here in America. Joe Biden. China's watching what he's going to do with Ukraine. Now, Ben Shapiro just laid out this outline of the one way where Putin can walk away holding his head up, so save face, which will help divert a possible nuclear war, and it will allow Zelensky to walk away holding his head up, again, possibly diverting a nuclear war, and Joe Biden has to look like the bad guy. Which I have no qualms with that, but the problem is, the plan, the way it lays out, that kind of plan works in favor for China, because China's going to say, well, damn, if they did it for them, they'll do it for us. And what Ben Shapiro suggested is Joe Biden's got to get them both to the table, and he's got to say, listen, Zelensky, sorry, but the territory that Russia's got, you got to let them take it. Putin, you got to stop trying to invade the rest of Ukraine, because the United States, along with our allies in NATO, will do everything in our power to defend Ukraine from any further invasion. Everybody, the whole nuclear standoff is averted. Both sides of the table get to walk away looking like heroes. Neither side actually lost. And they get to blame Joe Biden. They both get to blame Joe Biden. So they get to wash their hands clean of the whole thing. And in all honesty, if it wasn't for the situation with Taiwan, because I can see it. It makes complete sense, and I understand it. It makes total sense. And it's the plan to get behind. But Taiwan, there's a whole nother situation going on that nobody's paying attention to. And it's not just, other than the problem with the microchips, that's a major issue. But it's still the other problem. The whole Pacific Triangle, once Taiwan gets taken, the whole Pacific Triangle is threatened. Because America can't defend Japan as well anymore. Vietnam has no defense. The midget up there in North Korea, he's just wringing his hands waiting to reunite Korea. Which, there's pros and cons to that, actually. That could completely backfire on him, because South Korea has been free and independent for so long that it would completely, reuniting them would completely corrupt North Korea in the eyes of the midget. So, but still, all these things come into play. And it's all weighing in the balance of what's going on in Ukraine. So it's a really scary situation. And any decision that's made, the whole Pacific Triangle has to be put into, they have to consider it. They have to put that into play in all their simulations. Because if they make that kind of deal, broker that kind of deal between Russia and Ukraine, that's going to give China an out. And so we're still back to the problem. The world has to go in and bomb Taiwan. And Taiwan, despite what you hear in the propaganda news, Taiwan is a sovereign country. It has its own economy, has its own money, has its own military, has its own constitution. It's actually it's very similar to America and the UK and Australia with its form of constitution. Governance may vary a little bit. It's more like America and probably Australia than it is UK on some levels, but still, it's a free and democratic country. And even the radical left, I mean, the radical right, they have to accept the fact that that's a constitutional country. So obviously, they would want to defend it. The radical left has to look at it. They got to realize it has a. Does it still have a female president? Had a female president. I believe it still has a female president. Woman president. An American-style democracy with a woman president. For gay rights activists, it was the first country in the world to actually legalize gay marriage. They still protect religious freedoms. I mean, Taiwan is an amazing country. Taiwan showed what could be done with the original concept of the American Constitution. They've surpassed America in some ways, really. I mean, think about it. They've surpassed us in some ways. They're not completely like our Constitution. They don't have all the same rights as us. I'm not saying it's perfect, but as a constitutional democracy, in many ways, it's surpassed us. It's the only true bell of freedom. Well, you got Japan, but in the lower part of the triangle, it's the only true bell of constitutional freedom. So, we need to protect it. None of the people of Taiwan, the majority, let me rephrase that, I think it's 10 to 15% want to go back to being part of China, but the overwhelming majority, they don't even... Are you Chinese? No, I'm Taiwanese. That's what the overwhelming majority will tell you. I'm Taiwanese. So it's a delicate situation. And it's a disaster waiting to happen. And the whole debacle that's unfolding before us. I mean, we could still wind up, even if Putin isn't the one to drop a nuke, we could still wind up where it might be China. Because the fact of the matter is, Australia is defending Taiwan tooth and nail. Australia is a NATO country. If Taiwan goes in and if Australia goes in and starts defending Taiwan, and China attacks Australia, we get involved. It's our ally. It's in our treaties. It's not only part of the NATO agreement, but Australia is actually one of our allies that we have treaties with, defense treaties with. It's like the UK. If China went and attacked UK, we'd go in and defend the UK. We'd stand with the UK. Not because of NATO, but because of our long-standing treaty with the UK. We have a treaty like that with Australia outside of NATO. And it's not just Australia. There's other countries that are defending Taiwan as well. There are other countries that, even America, we officially, unofficially recognize Taiwan as a sovereign country. It's complicated. The whole thing is complicated. But whatever happens with Ukraine, everybody got to keep that in mind. We still aren't done over there, because we got this whole thing going on in Taiwan, and outside of America, the whole world is pretty much talking about it. I mean, it's not like everyday headline news, but it's in the news all over the world on a regular basis. I mean, you have citizens in Taiwan, they're going and they're using, because they're not allowed to own firearms, but they're learning how to use tactical weapons using, basically like the BB guns. What are the ones with the soft pellets? Is that what they're called? Oh, airsofts. They're learning how to use tactical weapons using airsoft. They're learning tactical offense and defense using airsoft weapons. They're learning urban street warfare using airsoft weapons. I mean, the situation is getting pretty volatile. And most of the people in Taiwan, they're doing this because they're going to pick up arms if China tries to invade. So there's a lot more to Ukraine and Russia than just the Slavic states. The whole Pacific Triangle is teetering on what happens there. It's something to think about. And it's something everybody should start being aware of. Because I don't watch very much American news anymore. You have the Clinton News Network and the Trump News Network, and there's really nothing in between. There's no independent news anymore. To actually get independent news of what's going on in America, you got to watch news from outside of America. It used to be where you could watch CNN and Fox News, and between the two, you could get the balanced narrative, because you'd be like, okay, this one's leaning this way, this one's leaning this way, and right there's the truth. Okay, now I understand what's going on. Now they're so far radical that you watch this one and you watch this one, and you're like, okay, so Venus is burning and Mars is invading, but we're all moving to Jupiter. Got it. I mean, it's that bad. So, I just don't watch much American news. And then, I mean, it really all started going downhill for me with American news when all the news media was saying how all around the world Trump is a joke, but then you go and you look at Japanese newspapers and they're praising Trump for standing up to North Korea and defending them. You're seeing, in all places in the world, Istanbul newspapers talking about how, yeah, Trump's the buffoon, but at the same time, he's keeping stability in the Middle East. I mean, wherever you looked around the world, it was completely opposite from what you saw in the news in America. Everywhere in the world, even the BBC wasn't as hard on Trump as what the American news was. Because the BBC was so close to Europe, and you have all these in the Middle East and everywhere else, and they could only bash him so much. They didn't want to look like the American news media. I'm not saying they were gentle to him or that they were even fair to him a lot, but outside of outside of American news and to some respect the BBC, the rest of the world, yeah, they make fun of Trump all the time. But at the same time, they made fun of him for just the stupid shit that he did. But at the same time, in the very next sentence, they're praising him for all the good things he's doing. So, even, like I said, I'm not a big fan of Trump, but I don't think he was the worst president ever. But the fact that we can't get proper news in America anymore is a shame. So you got to go outside of America to find out what's going on in the world. And then you find out there's this whole crisis down here brewing. And the only thing holding this whole crisis at bay is because the whole world is standing behind Ukraine. If the world bailed on Ukraine, Taiwan would be a war zone right now. It's plain and simple fact. All the news, wherever you look, where they analyze what's going on in Taiwan, they all say the same thing. If the world did not stand behind Ukraine, China would have invaded Taiwan already. It's a very, very scary thought. And like I said, the bigger problem is the microchip factories. Because those microchip factories, people don't realize, the microchip factories, they not only tell everything about how the microchips are working, which that's not a big deal because, China, they can reverse engineer the microchips. What the factories have that China can't exactly get, unless they spend all this time figuring it out, is all the vulnerabilities, all the backdoor ways into these microchips. All that information is stored at those factories. The factories know how can our microchips be invaded. And that's why they work with the software companies to make the software to create all the anti-malware, anti-spyware, virus protection, all this stuff. Because they know what the vulnerabilities are. If China gets their hands on those vulnerabilities, %90 of the computers in the world, they have access to it. 90% of all the government computers in the world, they have access to it. 90% of the nuclear arsenal in the world, updated arsenal in the world, they have access to it. 90% of the submarines in the world, nuclear submarines, they have access to it. Do you see what the problem is? It's a very, very dangerous situation. So there's your Ukraine-Taiwan connection. And it's one hell of a scary connection.